Hello, 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 everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Tonight, our guest is Glenna Frey, MSN APRN-CNS, author with 40 years of experience in nephrology nursing, a kidney donor, the founder and director of Kidney Donor Conversations, the KDC, member of the American Nephrology Nurses Association, ANNA, and the National Kidney Donor Organization, the NKDO, a kidney advocate, and a PKD caretaker. Her specialty is hemodialysis, peritoneal dialysis, and kidney transplantation. In 2017, she donated a kidney to a stranger at the Cleveland Clinic. The following year, she co-founded the Kidney Donor Conversations, which is coming to an end this year. However, don't worry, Glenna's got her own website up, so if you want to talk to her or ask questions, of course, you can contact her there. And you guys know, as is my custom, the broadcast is pinned to the top of my Facebook page. In the comments are all the links, and that would include Glenna's new website, so you can find her and talk to her. The KDC, it is a not-for-profit providing education and support for living kidney donation with her daughter, Amanda. Glenna serves as the executive director of the KDC and has frequently presented programs on living kidney donation. She's a member of the American Nephrology Nurses Association and the National Kidney Donation Organization. She volunteers with the National Kidney Foundation and several other kidney groups. Her connection to kidney disease and kidney transplantation is deeply, deeply personal, and I do mean personal. Her husband, Bob, and many of his relatives have polycystic kidney disease, or PKD. Bob has undergone dialysis and is currently living with his second kidney transplant from a living kidney donor. Her children, Amantha and Sawyer, also have PKD, but the symptoms are not such at this point in time that it's being actively treated. Glenna is an amazing author, and I do mean amazing, and has published and contributed to several works on kidney donation and nephrology nursing. She is best known for her book, Understanding Living Kidney Donation, the Best Treatment for Kidney Disease. Here's Uncle Jim's a real bad picture. It's a real good book, though. It's available on Amazon. I'm going to show you the link during the broadcast. Make sure you go and purchase the book. Good book. Interesting. Glenna is also specialized in holistic therapy. She holds a black belt in Taekwondo, so be on your good behavior, and is a hula hoop instructor. Glenna currently resides in Northwest Ohio with her husband and enjoys time with her cat, a chocolate Labrador, as well as crocheting and native plant gardening. She also spends quite a bit of time with her granddaughter, Zora. Please give a warm welcome to a true kidney champion. Glenna Frey is here with us tonight. Glenna, how are you?
I am good. Thank you, Jim, so much for that introduction. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about everything kidneys. Well, maybe not everything, but a lot of kidneys.
Everything we can cram into.
That's right.
Did I state everything correctly in the introduction?
Yes, you did.
Can you share with us a little bit about where you grew up, your educational background, and your professional experience?
Yes, I grew up in a tiny town in Northwest Ohio called Haskins. It was a population of about 500. And I'm currently not far from there in another village called White House, which is about 5,000 people, again, both in Northwest Ohio. So yeah, I'm kind of a small town, rural, metropolitan girl. I went to school at Bowling Green State University. I got my BSN there, and I got my master's degree at Medical College of Ohio. And I have a clinical nurse specialist focus on nephrology. You've already mentioned a lot of my background. I don't need to go into that again, but my early days were at Medical College Hospital in Toledo. You already mentioned all the things related to dialysis and transplant. I was a nephrology case manager on the palliative care team at ProMedica Toledo Hospital after that. I've taught at Lourdes College in their School of Nursing. And my last job was doing holistic and complementary therapies at ProMedica Cancer Institute. I'm now retired and focus on writing, presentations, and advocacy about living kidney donation.
Wow. I understand that you're married and you have 2 children and 1 grandchild. Can you talk to us about how polycystic kidney disease has affected your husband, Bob, and his family and your children?
Sure. So Bob knew in his late teens that he had PKD, came from his father's side of the family. And unfortunately, he went on dialysis for just a couple months as he was prepping to get his first living donor kidney transplant. And that was back in 2002. He did choose to have his 2 very large football-sized polycystic kidneys removed at the time of that surgery. Melanie, who actually is my niece, was the donor. Slowly, that kidney function declined, and in 2020, he received another living donor kidney from my niece-in-law, Sarah. And so we're extremely thankful for the 2 of them for really giving him, a new life. He says he would be dead if he hadn't received those transplants. He's had some medical issues since then, or in between those 2 surgeries. He's had adhesions and bowel obstruction. He's had some precancerous skin lesions, and he now has post-transplant diabetes. Obviously, because he's immunosuppressed, he takes special precautions to prevent infections. But overall, he leads a pretty healthy lifestyle. He does woodworking and working in our chocolate lab. And I don't know, Jim, maybe you can relate to, even though you have a transplant, it doesn't mean everything's, always healthy and you always have perfect health. There can be issues that come up, and it's just something that you need to take care of and hopefully get better and move through.
Well, Glenna, I've been a PKD patient for over 40 years. Since the 1st of August of this year, I've been in the hospital 4 times, and I was transplanted 9 years ago. So yeah, I can relate.
You already mentioned that my children, we did find out that they both have PKD. They're asymptomatic with normal kidney function, and they're in their early 30s. So, about half of the people who have PKD will progress eventually to end stage, and we're just hoping that they don't, and trying to keep them as healthy as possible.
Great. I understand that in 2017, you donated a kidney to a stranger at the Cleveland Clinic. What motivated you to do that?
So when Bob was getting ready to get his first transplant, we're not compatible. I mean, we're kind of compatible, but not blood type compatible. And so paired exchange wasn't offered back then. And so we went ahead with his niece donating, who was a good match. And I always thought, well, I'll just give him through a paired exchange. Once that became available, I'll just give him a kidney and we'll do an exchange. And so I was just waiting until he needed another kidney. Well, I was in my late 50s, and he came up to me one day and he's like, Glenna, you're getting old. And I'm like, we're about the same age. I'm like, what's that mean? We're the same age. So are you. What's your point? And he's like, no, I'm doing really well with this kidney. I don't need it. I don't need yours right now. And if you want to donate, maybe you should do it now and not wait till you're older, wait any longer. So with that, and I hadn't even thought about me aging as I was waiting. I was just waiting. So anyway, I immediately started workup and started the process through Cleveland Clinic to be a non-directed living kidney donor. At that point, I didn't care who got my kidney. I just wanted to help someone. I know what life is like on dialysis, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone, to be honest. And so, yeah, I just wanted to help anybody. So during the workup, though, I found out about the National Kidney Registry Voucher Program, and I was the first voucher donor at Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And I did donate when I was 58. Amanda and Bob both have vouchers in case one of them would need a transplant in the future. So for Bob's second kidney transplant, he didn't use the voucher since we found another donor. So I was really happy about that. And again, I'm hoping that neither of them actually need it in the future. But if they do, it's really nice having it in your back pocket just in case if they would go into kidney failure, they would turn that in through NKR and be matched with a living donor kidney.
I understand that you waited 13 years to donate just in case your husband needed a
I was
kidney.
ready. I was ready. I was just waiting for the word. There were a few times I think his kidney function had declined, and then I'm like, okay, is this time? And then he got better, and it was fine. So, yeah, I felt like I was just, waiting on the sideline, ready to go in.
You got a couple of friends that are saying hello to us while we're on the broadcast. A lady named Nancy Marlin.
Yes. Hi, Nancy.
And our good friend Risa Simon. Risa set the record for appearances on the broadcast. I think she's up to 4 or 5 now, and she keeps writing these new books, so I got to have her back.
Right? I know.
She keeps me busy, Risa.
I know. They're both very, very special people and huge living donor advocates. Yes. I love having them in my space.
How is your health now following this non-directed donation? Have you experienced any complications or issues?
I really have been in excellent health with no problems. I did find out that my kidney was flown from Cleveland to Christ Hospital in Cincinnati. But I've been fine the whole time. I haven't had any contact with my recipient. All I know is that he was a 53-year-old male. He was married with children and on dialysis, and that he was able to get off dialysis. So that's all I needed to know, that I, kind of did what I could do to help somebody.
In 2018, you co-founded the not-for-profit Kidney Donor Conversation to support and educate others about living donation. What inspired you to do that, and what kinds of things did the organization do?
So literally, Amanda and I were sitting at the kitchen table talking about my donation. So this was the year after, and how I learned so much going through the process, how I didn't feel like there was much of any public education about living donation, and not really any support, and not much just basic knowledge to go somewhere to get that could tell me about living donation. And so we were so naive. We said, hey, let's start a nonprofit. And we had no idea what we were doing, but we kind of figured it out and stepped it through. We've offered education, presentations, peer support, We've been all volunteer run. So it's really been, just a passion to be able to be a part of KDC for all these years.
I understand the KDC is winding down in 2025. Can you share with us why it's ending? And can people still reach out to you for support if they want to?
So we kind of feel like it's time for a natural closure after fulfilling some of our mission to providing the education. We've got some animated YouTube videos that we've made, and we kind of hit the topics we thought were most important. The book was a really big project that I thought was important because I had been doing all these presentations over the years about living donation. I had talked to a lot of donors, a lot of the public, and most of my presentations were limited to an hour or less, and I felt like I had so much more content to share. And so that's really what the book is. It's taking all these pieces and all the things I learned over the years and kind of put it into that book. So I feel like it kind of was time to wind down. I'm still doing presentations, advocacy, public awareness. So I'm not sure I'm done, even though KDC might be done. I think you have my website and email for viewers in case they want to contact me. And the other thing is that National Kidney Donation Organization, or NKDO, it has really grown over the years and now has what I consider a very similar mission to what KDC was doing. And I really don't feel like I need to continue my tiny nonprofit, that I can kind of advise people to go to NKDO for information, and they're at nkdo.org. So I feel really comfortable now kind of handing over people to another nonprofit that I really believe in. And I think Emily, their current executive director, is just doing an amazing job. The other point I want to make, is there are a whole bunch of other resources listed in my book. Really too many to go into, but there are quite a few toward the back in the appendix.
Just as you can see, just a few. Takes up like 20 pages. The lady does her research. You mentioned a couple of other organizations. Are you involved with any other kidney or nursing related organizations as a volunteer?
Yeah, you've already mentioned a few: the American Nephrology Nurse Association, National Kidney Foundation, both locally here in Ohio and nationally. I work with them with advocacy, especially on the Living Donor Protection Act. Locally, I do some things with like Connection of Ohio, our local OPO, and Kidney Foundation of Northwest Ohio. That is not part of the NKF organization. I already mentioned NKDO. And I happen to be on the SRTR Living Donor Collective. And just for your audience, that's the scientific registry of transplant recipients. They collect all the data and report out on all the all the transplants that are done. And so we're looking at long-term data collection for living donors, which doesn't currently exist. Right now, their transplant hospitals are only required to report up to 2 years after the surgery for living donors. And we feel like we need much more data and research done so that we can make really better informed decisions when people are considering donation. And even for recipients, because often it's a family member and they need to know what are the long-term consequences if someone's going to donate on their behalf. So we're doing a lot of work through them and OPTN. I also am part of the coalition to modify NOTA. And currently, we're advocating pretty heavily for the End Kidney Deaths Act. That's HR 2687. It's a proposed U.S. bill that would give non-directed living kidney donors, those are the people donating to strangers, a $10,000 refundable tax credit each year for 5 years, for a total up to $50,000 of tax credit. The goal is to increase the number of living donations and reduce deaths on the transplant waiting list. So this 10-year pilot program, and I think sometimes people hear, oh, we're going to pay people to give us a kidney, right? That really isn't what this is. This is a tax credit. And it's not like you're handing over $50,000 after you donate a kidney. It's, spread out over that 5 years. And this is a pilot program. We want to know if we start with a very small group, which are non-directed donors, does it work? Is it a good idea? Do we increase the number of donors? Theoretically, if we had 10 times an increase in the donors, which would be about from 250 to 2,500 a year, we could save over $13 billion in Medicare spending. And you might say, okay, that doesn't make any sense. If you're paying all this money to all these donors, how does that save us money? Well, it's because it's very expensive to keep people on dialysis. It's much cheaper to get them a kidney transplant. And it's even cheaper to give them a living donor transplant than it is a deceased donor transplant. So that's where this cost savings comes in for the government, who is now paying lots of money to take care of these end-stage kidney disease patients on dialysis. And I think what's great about it is if the pilot's successful, then we could expand it to all living donors and think of the savings, lives, and money that we could get there.
Right. And I want you, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Glenna.
No,
you talk. Everybody listens to me all the time.
No. Do you have any questions about that?
I just wanted to remind people that I've had Elaine Perlman on the broadcast, and she is the ramrod behind the End of Kidney Disease Act. And if you're interested in catching the replay, it's still available on YouTube. So you just go to my YouTube site and look up Elaine, and
yeah, she's amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She is. She's an amazing person. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. I also just started connecting more with Brian Martindale, who runs the nonprofit Kidney for Kids. And he's the executive director. And he has a goal of moving from the current, we have about 6,000 living donors a year. And that really hasn't changed over the past years. Even as much as I think we're doing more and we're discussing living donation more, it really hasn't made a huge impact. So his lofty goal is let's get to 7,000 living donors in 2026 through his Drive to 7,000 campaign. And I thought it was interesting because we usually always hear the numbers of 90,000 people on the kidney transplant waiting list. About 2,000 of those are children. So Jim, I don't know, have you ever had Brian on your broadcast before?
Oh yeah.
Aha. Yes. So he's pretty fired up about this Drive to 7,000 campaign.
He is an amazing person, travels all around the country helping young people get kidney transplants and publicizing their plight and sharing his story, and just an amazing guy, Brian.
Agreed.
Check out his broadcast on my YouTube channel as well. Let's talk about the book. Understanding Living Kidney Donation, the best treatment for kidney disease. Why did you write it, and where can people find it?
So I think I already explained it came about because I had done all these presentations. I really have to give my daughter credit, though. Amanda was the one who early, after we had started, maybe a few years into Kidney Donor Conversations, she's like, Mom, you have to write a book. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. She goes, yes, you have a book in you. Look at all this information and knowledge that you have. And I'm like, no, it was like years. I was like, no book. And then I don't know what happened, but I must have reached a tipping point and decided, well, I have enough information. Let's work on it. So, it took me, I don't know, 2 or 3 years of writing. And then after I retired last year, I really felt like I had the time to seriously finish it. So I pretty much finished the manuscript last year, and then figured out again how to self-publish on Amazon, and it came out in February of this year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And the link to Amazon is scrolling across the screen as we speak. It's also in the comments to the broadcast, pinned to my Facebook page if it's going by too fast. So, and I've got to tell you, I've been a kidney patient and affiliated with kidney advocacy organizations for over 45 years. And I read Glenna's book, focusing on living kidney donation. And I just learned so much from her book, things that I had not seen or heard of before. It's just a terrific book. I can highly recommend it. Go to the link on Amazon, and it's at a fabulous cost right now. And just a tremendous book. Tremendous book. Read it twice, as a matter of fact.
Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. I thought it was important to discuss some of the problems with the transplant waiting list and dialysis, and then some clarity around living kidney donation. I wanted it to be easy to read. Sometimes it was hard to not be medical with my nursing background, and sometimes Amanda would help me with that. It's like, no, you have to explain this in simple terms. So I'm hoping it can help both potential donors and recipients, because if someone's wanting a living donor, often they don't know the process of what people have to go through. So I think both donors and recipients can really benefit from this, to kind of understanding the big picture of what happens. Oh, and Amanda has finished recording the book for Audible. So I'm hoping to get that out really probably within the next month. We should have it available on Audible.
Excellent. Let's talk about the big organ donation myth. How does the shortage of organs, especially kidneys, impact recipients? Why isn't deceased donation alone the solution?
So I think the myth starts with this, with people saying, if you register to be an organ donor, I think people think they will donate when they die. And the reality is less than 1% of the people who are registered will actually die in the right way, have healthy enough organs, have their family consent, and become deceased organ donors. Less than 1% of the people that are registered. Some people also believe that if we had a system where it defaulted to everyone would be an organ donor unless you opt out, that would solve the problem. But that doesn't change the fact that you have to, same thing, you have to die in a very narrow, certain way, typically brain dead, sometimes cardiac death. You have to be in a hospital, on a ventilator. I mean, I honestly don't know a lot of people that have died that way in my lifetime. You have to have healthy organs, so not just die that way, but your organs have to be healthy enough, whichever ones are donated, and your family will consent. Now, I know legally they can take the organs without family consent if you've indicated you want to donate your organs. But most OPOs will not take the organs. They don't want a potential lawsuit. You know, when they have a person standing in front of them saying, no, you can't have, you know, my deceased loved one's organs, they're not going to take them. So in some ways, registering kind of isn't the most important thing. It's more about the way you're going to die. And you could register to be an organ donor. And I'm not saying don't register. I think it's good. I think the communication is important. We get so many organs that we need, and that's the only way we get them is through deceased donors. You know, the lungs, the hearts, a lot of the livers. So we need deceased donors, don't get me wrong. But you could register, and you could also be a living kidney donor. The wait time is about, let's see, if you want a deceased donor, the wait time is about 5 to 10 years to get that. And it doesn't start as working as quickly, typically, if you have a deceased donor kidney, and they don't last as long. They average around 10-ish years. So this, and some people say, well, a kidney is a kidney is a kidney, and it's just not true. A deceased donor kidney is not equivalent to a living donor kidney. So that's part of why I think these myths, and it's not even that people are trying to deceive people. I think we just don't tell the full story. And we just don't embrace living donation maybe as much as we should.
Okay. I want to make sure I understand this. With deceased donation, even after the donor donates a kidney, less than 1% of all the people who register and end up donating, less than 1% actually completes the task of having someone receive the kidney in donation. If you die the wrong way, if your organs are unhealthy, they say they don't do this, but in your book you talk about age, cancer, diabetes, PKD. These organs that are not being used, they're being discarded. Families can, in effect, revoke your consent to donation because hospitals want to avoid litigation. That's all part of this big donation myth thing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about as far as a myth is concerned is that all my life I've heard over and over again, there is a shortage of kidneys in our country, when in fact it's not a kidney shortage in terms of numbers, but it's the way the kidneys are allocated. Can you please explain that?
So when I first started writing the book, I was going under the premise we don't have enough kidneys, right? Because obviously we have a waiting list of 90,000 people, so there aren't enough kidneys. Well, I think the bigger issue is are there, and this is kind of the question I looked at and addressed, is are there enough healthy people that could donate a kidney? We know that there aren't enough deceased donor kidneys. That's a fact, or we would have this wouldn't have be the big problem it is now. So we don't have enough deceased donor kidneys. And I don't think changing the rules, will change, as far as if everyone could default donate is going to change that. So these are the numbers I came up with. So just hang with me for a minute. I don't like statistics a lot, but I'm going to try and make it simple. So we have about, in the US, the people in end-stage kidney disease, about 68, let's just round it. 70% on dialysis and 30% have a transplant. Of those who get a transplant, only 1 in 5 is a living donor transplant. So most are deceased. I mean, I'm not saying we don't need them, and they're very valuable. And the nice thing is you can get 2 kidneys from, often, if they're healthy enough, from 1 deceased donor. But here's the fascinating thing to me, and I couldn't believe this. I actually looked, I did this calculation today in preparation for tonight. Less than 1%, there's that less than 1% again, but this is different. Less than 1% of people with end-stage kidney disease receive a living donor kidney transplant, despite it being the best treatment with the best outcomes. I'm going to say that again. Less than 1% of the people with end-stage kidney disease, which means you're either on dialysis or have a transplant, receive a living donor transplant. And it's the best treatment. And I'm like, what is wrong with our system that we're not giving more people the best treatment that we have? Would you like to say anything about that, Jim? It's astounding that when I saw that today, I was just like, you kind of feel it inside that it's true, but to see that number, I had no idea it was that low, actually.
So, in effect, we're banging the drum about the wrong kind of kidney donation. There are 90,000 people in need in the United States. According to your book, there are 27.3 million kidneys in the country, so there's really no shortage. It's the way it's allocated, and it's the kidneys that are being thrown away. For example, you say in 2023, 90,000 people on the list, 27,000 received a kidney. 3/4 of them were from deceased donors and only 1/4 from living kidney donors. That means that 63,000 people did not receive a kidney and 5,000 people died waiting, meaning that they were healthy at one point in time, healthy enough to get on the list, but waiting, 5,000 people died. It's kind of a lot of what Elaine talks about when she talks about the End of Kidneys Death Act. So it leads to my next question. Why is living kidney donation the best treatment for kidney failure? Can you speak to the current bias against it, the realities of dialysis versus transplant, and your vision for the future?
Yeah, so they last about twice as long as a deceased donor kidney. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in all the physician offices and transplant units when they talk about this. I don't know if people don't hear it if it's not being said very clearly, or it just feels like too big of a burden to try and get a living donor. But I will talk about the systemic issues we have in a minute. So the outcomes, better quality of life. I mentioned that the kidney starts working faster. The workup is quicker. So if you're waiting 5 to 10 years for a deceased donor kidney, and the average life expectancy on dialysis is like 5-ish years, you're going to die before you get a transplant. You can work up a living donor, depending on how quickly the transplant center does this, in months. And I like to say less than a year. They're really, for most people, you should be able to get it worked up in less than a year and transplanted. So it's much quicker, and you're getting people, faster. They're not continuing to wait and deteriorate on dialysis. I really wasn't going to go into this, but let me just mention, we need to be catching people at stage 3 and 4 CKD, not after they're on dialysis. We need to catch them when they're healthier and they have time to find a living donor and can get transplanted before they start dialysis. Our system, that's the kind of upside down system that we have, is we're like dialysis first, and then living donors are this tiny, less than 1%. It should be flipped around. We should have the most people getting the best treatment, a living donor transplant, and the fewest people getting and being put on dialysis. But, it's difficult the way our system's set up now to do that.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Glenna, because as you know, I run 120 groups plus on Facebook. One of them is exclusively about preemptive kidney transplant. I get questions every day about what is preemptive kidney transplant. And it surprises me because I don't think that doctors are mentioning this to their patients as a possible option. I think they're putting everyone on dialysis first before they begin to discuss transplant. And of course, the group that people like Fresenius, for example, that run dialysis, that makes them very happy because they make a heck of a lot of money off of people. I think that, for example, when I was on dialysis for 4 years. When I was on dialysis, I used to get these copies of bills. It was over $100,000 a month that they were paying these people to suck the blood out of me and clean it and put it back. So a little bit strange.
It is very strange where you look, well, and another part of me is like, no, it's not. Follow the money, follow the business. Dialysis is a big business. Kidney transplant, maybe not as big. Yeah. And living donor transplant, like, we're giving away kidneys for free. Actually, I had to pay to give away a kidney because I had out-of-pocket expenses. Like, how does that make any sense in this world? So, when people talk about we shouldn't be paying living donors, I'm like, well, everyone else is being paid. The transplant center, the physicians, the nurses, the OPOs, everyone's being paid for these other kidneys. Why is it just supposed to be out of the goodness of our heart? And which it is, obviously, or we wouldn't have done it. But it's like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a little bit of a mismatch there, that they think it's such a horrible thing that someone could be reimbursed for doing, this giving an organ away. Anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that.
No, it's great.
Let's see. I have some more points. I don't know. I might be jumping around a little, but I think we talked a little about having enough living donors. And I want to make just a few points about that. So
Okay.
about 10 to 15% of the US adult population are probably healthy enough to be living kidney donors. And that's about 30 million people. And there's 90,000 on the waiting list. So there's enough healthy donors in our population that we're not kind of reaching or tapping into, or, even if a small portion of those would donate, we wouldn't have a shortage. The issue isn't a shortage of healthy donors. I think it's a shortage of awareness, education, and a support system to help living donors. Dialysis and deceased donor transplant costs more. We already mentioned that. And there could be so much money saved by promoting and looking at living donors, even if we reimburse them. I don't understand. It's kind of like, I don't know what the discussions are, but I think they're not. You have kidney disease. Let's try and get you the best treatment for that kidney disease. Let's try and get you a living donor transplant. And these are the ways we can move forward to help you with that. What we do is we say, go find your donor, goodbye. I think we're the only disease that exists that we don't provide the best treatment. If you
Agreed.
needed heart surgery, they would get you a valve, they would get you whatever you needed to fix that heart. If you needed a hip replacement, they would get you the hardware for that. If you had cancer, they will tell you where the radiation and get you the oncology meds. Like, everyone else wants you to have the best treatment, except kidney disease. It is just this huge disconnect that is very, very difficult for me to wrap my head around. I mean, I just go back to follow the money, with dialysis. But I think, like, when are we going to wake up? Why aren't people demanding the best treatment and the resources to get it? Because anyone sick on dialysis should not have to be the person in charge of finding a living donor. And they don't have the energy to do that anyway. They're barely surviving. So yeah, I that is why, very intentionally, my book has this subtitle, The Best Treatment for Kidney Disease. I mean, technically it's for kidney failure, but again, if we're looking at, let's start in stage 3 and 4, then we need to get to people earlier. We need to be planning ahead. We need to be not being okay with just, I don't have any symptoms, it's not real, but we really need to get serious about, we want to help you live a better life. And this is how we can do it the best way.
Right. And so many advantages to living kidney donation: less wait time. Kidney starts working right away. Last 15 to 20 years, better cognitive outcomes. Because of the publicity, people always assume dialysis before transplant, which turns out is the worst experience and the most frequently used path. But after 2 years, according to the book, only 15% of hemodialysis patients were able to maintain a good physical condition, and a substantial number of them die.
I mean, Jim, you're with a lot of people, you have a huge outreach. Do you know people on dialysis that have died?
Oh, yeah. I have good friends that passed away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you talk to staff who work in a dialysis unit, I mean, that's not an uncommon occurrence that people are dying.
When
I
I
don't-
was on dialysis, I watched 4 people die, including a lady that was within arm's length away from me.
Yeah, yeah.
What are some of the different ways someone can donate a kidney? And can you explain what a kidney registry is and how the voucher donation works?
Sure. So I like to say there's 3 basic ways. If you take out deceased, we just look at living. Directed, so I want my kidney to go to so-and-so and we're compatible and I give them my kidney. Paired exchange, I kind of alluded to this when I talked about my husband. So let's say Bob and I are not compatible, but we go into a registry, which I'll talk about in a minute in more detail, where there's these other pairs that aren't compatible. And so they match me with someone else who needs a kidney that I'm that I am compatible with, and they match him with a donor who he's more compatible with. So win-win, paired exchange works out really well. Non-directed donation is what I ended up donating to a stranger. So let's talk about registries. There are 3 major registries in the United States that are, across the country. National Kidney Registry, which is the largest. The Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation, and OPTN Kidney Paired Donation. And I think for some reason they're still calling that pilot. I don't know why. It's been around for many years. So hospitals can also do matches internally if they want to. But anyway, so transplant centers can be a member of a registry. So you would say, well, why do we need these registries, right? Well, if you have a larger pool of people because multiple transplant centers are joining a registry, I'll be honest with you, if I'm donating my kidney, I want it to go to the best matched person. I honestly don't even care if it goes to the person I know. I would rather it goes to the best matched person. And so that's really what these registries do. They run the statistics. They have all these donors. They have all of these potential recipients. And they find who is the best match. And I'm, obviously simplifying this very much. So the more centers that are part of the registry, to me, that's a huge advantage, right? I think, and I'm not in a transplant center now, and I don't know all the financials, but I believe that if you keep the kidneys matching internally, the hospitals save money. So they like actually to do that sometimes. They would prefer that rather than using a registry. But I think you can get better matching. They also have a lot more protections for living donors, especially. NKR and the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation both have assistance, support, and protections. I won't go into the detail, but you can find them on their websites. OPTN does not, because it's part of the government system, and the government doesn't give donors other than through NALDAC. They don't, really help support any protections for donors. And typically transplant centers don't either. So really, there's huge advantages for living donors to donate through a registry. And I think non-directed donors are also a huge untapped resource because of the voucher system that's available. I hope I explained that good enough, but basically you have to to donate a kidney to a stranger, through a registry who has vouchers. And right now those are only, again, NKR, in the Alliance for Paired Kidney Donation. And you get, and there are, each of them has 3 different types of vouchers. I'm not going to go into vouchers today, but they each have their own little nuances. I'll be honest with you, I wish there was just one voucher and it was the same everywhere. I think it would simplify it. I think people get very confused when they talk about the different types of vouchers, and I don't think that helps with communication. So anyway, you designate X number of people that you want to get a voucher when you donate non-directed. And then they have a voucher, and I call it a coupon for a kidney. And so only one can use it. All the people can't use it. You only get one kidney out of it. So if you go into kidney failure in the future, one person can turn in that voucher and go into a paired exchange. And for NKR, they will match you with a living donor kidney. I don't know that that's specific to the Alliance. At one point, I saw that they could be, there could be a deceased donor. The other thing, because I did a non-directed through NKR, if I would ever go into kidney failure, and they talk about that very clearly when you go through the workup, that that's a possibility. I would prefer to have a living donor. I'll be real honest. I don't want a deceased donor transplant, right? So NKR, that's what NKR says they would give me, is a living donor. They would put me into a registry and match me with a living donor. I'm going to talk about the transplant waiting list for a second, because I think sometimes it can be very confusing between these registries that I just discussed. And people always say to me, well, don't you go to the top of the list as a living donor if you're, and I'm like, okay, well, first of all, registries and the waiting list are 2 different things. The transplant waiting list is you're waiting for a deceased donor kidney. The registries are living donors and people who want a living donor kidney. I get extra points because I donated a kidney on the transplant waiting list. I don't go to the top. I mean, that's kind of, I think that's kind of the lay term people must use, but I get extra points. You know, there's this whole point system for how long you've been on dialysis, and it's quite complicated, but I would get more points because I donated. So that's the deceased donor waiting list. My preference would always be to have a living donor. And so now, because I've donated through NKR, that would more likely be what would happen. Did that make sense, or was anything still confusing?
Yeah.
Jim? I'm sure you've heard all of this before, but I think it can be very confusing with the vouchers and registries and who does what. What
do you envision as the future infrastructure needed to fully support living donor transplantation as the best treatment?
Wow, that's a loaded question.
If you had your way, Glenna, what would it be like?
So, in my perfect world, and really, I just kept thinking about this after I wrote the book, kind of more and more and more. What could we do to make it better? And so I've kind of been talking with Brian Martindale, who we've mentioned, Kidneys for Kids, and Julie Hodges. And what if, and I know you're going to say, oh, this is pie in the sky, but I'm like, you know what? It's time to shake things up. What if we already have an infrastructure across the country with organ procurement organizations who deal with deceased donor transplants and finding kidneys and all of that. Why not have a dedicated living kidney donation division to support, educate, and guide both potential donors and transplant candidates? If we leveraged the 53 OPOs, unless they've merged again, which this week, I don't know what's happening. If we use that infrastructure, maybe we could increase access, equity, and coordination in living kidney donation. And this is not replacing anything the transplant centers do. This is providing additional assistance with someone like a living donor specialist who would be specifically trained to talk to living donors, understand the process, and to help recipients with the process. We have a lot of nonprofits that help donors and recipients. I'm not arguing that point, but we don't have a national organized system that does that. We don't have an entryway for all living donors to go through that I can say, click on this website and do a health questionnaire for the initial screening to see if you could potentially donate. We don't have that system. And I'm like, why not? Why don't we? We have that system to register to be an organ donor, but not a living kidney donor. And the reason I say kidney is because that's the most people on the waiting list. 90,000 people out of the 100,000 that need organs. So let's focus our energy, our resources, our time, our money into living donation, and the government saves money. I don't know. Why not? Why not try?
We should.
So that's kind of the current thing I'm kind of playing with. We're looking at some of the details of, taking it to OPTN and getting some initial feedback before it's real public. But I just feel like we've got to do something. What we're doing isn't working. We have how many thousands of people that just came off the registry have let's see, here's what I have. Tens of thousands Americans since July have removed themselves from organ donor registries. We've got an issue with the OPOs right now. And hopefully, we can get things fixed and make improvements and get back on track with doing the good work that they're trying to do. But why do we continue to ignore living donation, even though it's the best treatment?
By far the best treatment.
Tell me how crazy that is, Jim.
It's pretty crazy. Okay. Do you have any final thoughts or messages you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up for the night?
Well,
any final statements?
It's nothing new, but I'm going to say it one more time. A living donor transplant is the best treatment for kidney failure. It's the only disease that we don't encourage and provide resources for the best treatment. And it's time that we prioritize resources to save lives for people with CKD through a better, more integrated system to help potential donors and recipients to get a living donor transplant. Thank you, Jim, for this opportunity and just for allowing me to have this conversation and to have a voice. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing with us. I apologize for having to reschedule. I've been so unhealthy since the first part of August that I've been juggling the schedule around quite a bit, and Glenna's been kind enough to accommodate me, so I appreciate that very much, Glenna.
I'm just happy to be here now. Thank you.
Okay, well, I've kept you for over an hour. I have a few things I have to button up with my audience about who's coming on next week and all that sort of thing. So I'm going to let you go if that's cool with you.
Will do.
And we'll take care of my procedural headaches. And I just want to say thank you again for coming on. Just a great night. And this is the book that you're interested in. And the link to purchase the book is in the comments to the broadcast, pinned at the top of my Facebook page, Jim Myers, Myers. Great book. I learned a lot from reading it. So I think you will too.
All right. Thanks, Jim. You take care of yourself.
I will do that. Thank you for coming on and talking to us.
Yep. Bye.
All right, everybody. That's our broadcast for this evening. Next week, we're talking to Jeanette Kill. She's a PKD patient and advocate. I worked with her last year through the Advocacy Champions Network. She did a wonderful job, and very, very interesting stuff going on in her life. So that'll be what's going on next week, 7 p.m. as usual. And I just wanted to say, wow, what a terrific broadcast tonight. I hope everybody learned a lot. Some interesting concepts came up, and things that, those of us that have been around the kidney community for a while think are obvious, and we wonder, why changes are not being made. Maybe this is a step in the right direction. So hopefully that's the case, and I thank you for coming on with us, and I will see you next week. Take care, my friends.